Now, you may be aware that 84% of marketing professionals say that they accurately are measuring what drives their revenue, or they'd like to be, but only 17% are actually doing it. And they're only 17% are actually tracking performance across all their digital channels. I, as I'm sure you do, want to know why. So I'm joined today by Zeke Camusio. Now, Zeke is a Stanford data scientist, entrepreneur, and founder of Data Speaks, an AI-powered marketing analytics platform. He's helped over 200 companies make data-driven decisions to grow faster and, really importantly, reduce advertising waste. So welcome to the podcast, Zeke.
Thank you, Neil.
This is important stuff, isn't it? I think a lot of people are wasting time, wasting resources, throwing money at things like advertising and just hoping. They're not really measuring this stuff, are they, according to those research findings? Why is that, do you think?
Well, there's a gap between that 80% that you mentioned of marketers that believe this is really important to measure, and the small percentage of marketers who feel confident in the way they're measuring things. Um, that's because measuring is really complex, and really what happens is consumers interact with brands through a number of different channels. They use different devices, and over the last couple of years, with all these pixels and Google Analytics and all these dashboards that we have, that has given us a false sense of knowing what's going on without really understanding the limitations of those technologies. So when you think about a pixel, let's say Google Ads gives you a pixel that you can put on your website to track the conversions or revenue that they drive. There are a lot of issues with that pixel. First and foremost, because of ad blockers, privacy settings, and so on, 42% of the time, those pixels never fire. So right out of the bat, half of your conversions are not being tracked. Another issue is that each of those pixels lives in a vacuum and doesn't really communicate with any other systems. So it doesn't have access to your source of truth, which could be your e-commerce sales. It could be the number of leads that you get in your CRM. It doesn't read that directly, and it doesn't talk to other pixels. So maybe you have your Facebook pixel, your Google pixel. A consumer clicks on a Facebook ad, then a Google ad, then they say, open, they open one of your emails. So you're going to have 3 different platforms claiming credit for the same sale. And that's a big issue, right? We want to integrate all your data, and from your source of truth, understand the impact of each channel, rather than each channel, say, claiming credit for all the sales they touched. And another issue is that pixels essentially measure participation and not impact. And what I mean by that is, imagine you have you're in the UK, so let's say a fish and chips restaurant, and somebody tells you that if you hire a promoter to be outside with a sign, you're gonna double your sales. So you hire someone, usually you get 100 customers a day. Now you get 120 customers a day, right? So that's 20 additional customers a day. That's the incrementality that should actually be measured, the impact that is delivering to your business. Now, that promoter could tell you, oh, wait, actually 120 people saw the sign, therefore I drove 120 customers. And that's how pixels work. Essentially, as long as somebody was exposed to an ad, they don't even have to click on it. They have to, they could be browsing their Instagram, and that ad happens to be there. So that says nothing about impact. Impact is how many additional sales or additional dollars you're getting in your bank account because of the ads. So it's complex. Like the tools that all these platforms are providing us are giving us data. We have the false illusion that the data is correct, but it's not.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because those little things, those little moments can, Yeah, kind of really fool you, can't they? Because so just I love the analogy of the the shop and the display outside that makes the person, as you say, the promoter think, okay, I've driven all of those people in, but clearly, obviously, some would have already come anyway
Mhm.
because they already knew. Did those 20 who were coming, was that actually a good number? Because it could have been 40 who actually saw it, but only 20 came in. So that it is so complex, isn't it? And to actually unpick this and actually find out really where is the true value of that spend. And of course, if you're doing this across multiple channels, it gets even more complex, because then you need to compare each channel. And of course, if you're serving each channel with the same creative or the same ad, it may well be that a certain ad doesn't perform just by the nature of the channel as well. So it might not be it didn't work. It might just be it wasn't suitable creative. I mean, where do you begin with this? I mean, it's really complicated, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are two ways that marketers can address this issue. One of them is called multi-touch attribution. And the way to think about it is all these pixels we've been talking about are third-party pixels. So Google gives you one, Facebook gives you one, and so on. And we talked about the fact that 42% of the time these pixels are being blocked. The solution to that is to have your own first-party tracking that tracks not only sales or conversions, but also anything you want to track. People adding products to your shopping cart, reading reviews. You could track whatever you want, and then you could use a server side back end system to send that data back to the platforms. And there are two benefits to that. The first one is that these are backend servers. They're never blocked, because it's not a pixel that needs to fire on your website, so it's always going to work. Um, and you are sending twice as many conversions to the platform. So the algorithms work by identifying who's buying, who's not buying, and showing the right creatives to the right audiences based on past performance. If you're only sending half of the conversions, the algorithm is not going to be as effective. So that's something that has the benefit of helping all these platforms perform as well as possible for your own business objectives. The second benefit to this is that you can build a 360 view of the customer journey. So across multiple devices, you can see that they clicked on this email and then they clicked on this ad from their phone, and then they went on their desktop and they clicked on this and that, and have that all unified under a single profile. That's really useful when I want to understand the subtleties of the customer journey. Like maybe people watch a video to learn how our product works, but it's not until they see certain testimonials that they feel confident enough purchasing. That while that is really useful to help us put together effective creatives and think about the way we're telling the story across multiple channels, is really not an attribution a solution to attribution. The reason for that is that any attribution based on that is going to have to have some arbitrary scoring. So some people use last click, where they give 100% of the credit to the last touch point. Some people use first click, where 100% of credit goes to the first one. Some people use kind of position based or linear, where if you have 3 different touch points, you give 33% of the credit to each. Any of those is arbitrary, and therefore it has no basis in science, right? So that's not a good way to understand the impact of each player in the overall outcome, but it helps you understand how the game is being played. Now, for attribution, really what you want to do is do it based not on participation, but based on impact. And the best way to do that, going back to our example of your fish and chips restaurant, is you want to measure the incrementality of each activity you do. And there are two ways to do this. One is you could actually do an experiment. So let's say that you've had this promoter outside your store for a year. You're like, take a break for a week and we'll see what happens. You see your number of customers drop from 120 to 100, and then the impact that person is having. You could also do a scale up experiment where you say, I'm actually going to have two promoters, one on the north corner, one on the south corner, and maybe now you have 130, right? So you have 10 more because of this new person. In marketing, what we do is we do this by geographic locations. So let's say in the United States, for New York and Alabama, for 20 days, we shut off a certain channel, or we scale up a certain channel, and then we look at what the sales would have been and what the sales actually were, and measure that difference. And that's a very, very effective way to do it. It's actually something that is used in every scientific discipline, the randomized controlled trials, where you take a subset of your whole market and give it a different treatment, and then you measure how it behaves different than the control group. A lot of the times in marketing, we can't really do that. Or it's just not practical, or the client doesn't want to do that. So the technique that is used for that is media mix modeling. And media mix modeling has been around for like over 75 years. It became less mainstream in the early years of the internet, because there was, like, again, this illusion that we could just put a pixel and track people. And then as there were more ad blockers and more devices and more channels, it just became impossible to do that. Media mix modeling just kind of came back. The last couple of years, there's been an explosion of companies using media mix modeling. With media mix modeling, you don't have to run any experiments, but essentially it's trying to figure out the same thing, right? Like we call it natural experiments. So at some point in the last couple of years, likely you increase or decrease your advertising budget for certain channels, and then we can look at what happens. So if, let's say, you double your investment in Facebook for a certain state last month, your sales stay the same, well, that's telling you a lot about how little impact Facebook has. But if you doubled it and then your sales increased, that's also saying a lot about the impact it had. So these experiments happen all the time. If you look at, for example, the United States, we have 50 states. So we have 50 daily observations. And, if you look at one state one day, that increase or decrease could be by just plain coincidence. But if you have 50 daily observations times, usually we look at 3 years of data, so you have 1,000 days, so you have 50,000 observations, you see very clear patterns, right? And yeah, that's the ideal mix is multi-touch attribution. Helps you understand the customer journey, gives you qualitative data about the actual creatives. Is very good for that day-to-day optimization of how you tell a story depending on where people are in that journey. Media mix modeling tells you what we call the MDQ, the $1 million question, which is how much revenue will you get for every dollar that you invest in X. So that's actually measuring impact. And if you ever want to put it to the test, you can do an incrementality experiment with a geo segmentation.
I love the way that you've brought in the concept of customer journey so early in that description, because I think for a lot of people, they often think of this topic as something that only applies right at the start of the journey. So, if you think of it as a sales funnel, it's just at that initial point of contact. So, somebody's seen the ad, and then, we don't need to worry about measuring the rest. But actually what you're saying, Zeke, is that is only literally the tip of the iceberg, and we need to think much more deeply along the journey, because there's so much more learning across all the different touch points and channels as we go deeper into the journey. So we can get this kind of real value coming through in the entirety of that customer experience, not only at that initial awareness stage. So the promoter outside of the fish and chip shop is only pushing people in through the front door. whether they then buy and how much they spend and whether they trade up to the larger piece of fish or the extra chips or whatever it is, that comes later in the journey, doesn't it? So we can also see that play out, I guess, with the data. Am I kind of seeing this
Yeah,
working properly like this?
absolutely. And yeah, so I think that there's two big insights to get from this. So with MTA or multi-touch attribution, um, I can look at one customer at a time and understand their own individual journey. The limitation of this is that it's very difficult to look at patterns, because I had to look at each person and how this person interacted with my brand. And that is, for example, very useful for business to business, where you maybe have each deal is worth $50,000. As a salesperson, you might want to know that a prospect you're about to talk to downloaded a certain white paper and saw your pricing page and saw how you compare to a certain competitor. That's very valuable qualitative insights that I can then leverage in the conversation. The problem is when that's being used for attribution, because that's like saying that in a soccer game, what team do you root for? Football,
Me?
sorry, football. Yeah, not soccer, football. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, yeah. Well, if it was football, it would be San Francisco 49ers. But if it was soccer, probably Liverpool here in the
Liverpool.
UK.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like saying, who's the best Liverpool player at the moment?
Oh, Mo Salah.
Okay. Yeah, I love Salah. So it would be like Salah is contributes because there's 11 players on the team. He contributes about 9% of the overall impact of the team. That's not true, right? It's mostly likely 20%, right? And there's other players that contribute less. So that's the problem with MTA, saying that just because somebody was on the field, that person contributed as much as everybody else on the field. When you measure actual impact, you see that yeah, maybe people are going to a store, for example, and talking to person A and person B equal number of times, but when they talk to person B, they almost always buy. When they talk to person A, sometimes they buy, sometimes they don't buy. So they're both there, but one of them has more impact than the other. So when you combine both insights with MTA, you could see with a much higher degree of detail individual people, because with media mix modeling or MMA, you're not able to track individual customers, right? So you're aggregating data, seeing you spend $1,000 today in Colorado, and you got this many sales on Amazon, this many sales on your e-commerce and so on, but you're not looking at individuals. So the latter helps you understand the impact of every dollar that you put in each channel. The former helps you understand individual customer journeys.
And again, that's important. I think that differentiation, because yeah, I think we'd be very, very hopeful to be able to do some of this real deep dive at scale. I mean, the possibility of knowing every single touch point with every single customer, if you're B2C, I mean, is impossible. So that, yeah, that scaling has to then come through maybe a slightly more generalized approach, doesn't it? I mean, it feels like there has to be almost a very patient strategy here. This isn't something you can just go to and just switch on and say, right, give me all the information, give me all the data. I just need this, literally here. And I don't have any time to devote to this. As a marketer or a business owner, you've got to be patient, haven't you? Feels like you have to be really immersed in this and really kind of serious about getting the value out by taking the time and the input to really think it through. Or have I misread this?
You're absolutely right. And what I tell people when they say that is, what is the alternative? Because when you think about it, normally we implement both MTA and MMA, both approaches with our clients. With MTA, we normally see at least a 15% increase in return on investment for all their ads, and with MMA, we see a 20% increment. So when you combine both, it's 35% percent. So if you're investing, say, then $100,000 per month, to get the equivalent results that you get from working with these insights, you'd have to invest $35,000 per month more. So you have to be investing 135,000 with poor insights, or 100,000 with good insights. So right now, if usually when people ask that question, they're doing it by throwing more money at the problem. So sure, if you can have a lot of inefficiencies, but as long as you're investing more and more and more, your sales will keep increasing. Now, we don't advocate for doing it the brute force way. Instead, you can leverage insights and make good decisions. So it's a really easy conversation for us to have with prospects when they understand that we are here to help you recover some of the money that you're being wasting. You don't have to make it, a new set of investments to get to the next level. You're already wasting money, and we can help you put that back in your pocket. And the other thing is, in the same way that, for example, as a CEO or CMO, you would hire somebody to do your, email marketing or, media buying. You don't have to worry about this yourself. You can hire a team of data scientists that will set it up for you, help you interpret model results, help you make decisions. So I would say, yeah, there's it's an investment in time and focus that will help you get your money back. And as advertising is becoming more and more expensive, there's more people going into the market. Essentially you're getting insurance on your investment and making sure that you're getting the most out of it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess a lot of people listening to this would be thinking, oh, Zeke, yes, you're absolutely right, because all I'm doing is trying to grow elsewhere. I'm trying to spend more money. I'm trying to make more sales calls. I'm trying to just do more content marketing, place more ads in more channels. I'm just trying to do more to kind of grow. Whereas actually what you're saying, I think, is making total sense to me, that, hold on, you're already doing some of this stuff. So therefore, if you can make it more efficient, you've probably already got the answers. You're just not seeing them. So this is about being really honest with yourself, isn't it? And saying, we're not doing this well enough as a business. We've probably already got the answers. If we can uncover what those opportunities are within what we're already doing, we're going to just be so much more efficient. So every dollar we spend creates more value to the business. It's just so logical. But I wonder why so few people are actually doing this.
I think it's because of this idea we talked about, of this like false sense of illusion, where like you sign up with, say, Google Ads. They say, put this pixel on your website and we'll just give you revenue data. We'll just tell you how much revenue we generate. And I would say that most marketers know that that can't possibly be correct because of the limitations of the pixels in themselves, right? So I think the problem is that because it's a status quo, most people don't really spend a lot of time thinking about like the magnitude of this problem. When we tell people that, without really spending more, we could help you get 35% more revenue. It's kind of hard to believe, right? Because it's like, well, like 35%, that's substantial. Without spending more, how are you going to do that? So I think that the illusion people have is that maybe it's off by 1 or 2%, but when a very very relevant case, I talked to a client of us last week. We just finished implementing the DataSpeak solution for them. They had two different campaigns. One that was reporting a return on ad spend of 2, one that was reporting a return on spend of 5. So essentially, that's telling you that you get $2 back for every dollar in spend, and $5 here. When we ran the models, we showed them that it was the exact opposite. So this was 5, this was 2, and the thing about that is that if you go off the wrong insights, you're gonna make the exact opposite decision as what you should be making. So and that's a huge issue, right? Like you're investing in something that is going to generate an ROI of 2, whereas you could get 5 elsewhere. Um, and I think that's what most people don't really understand. They think that maybe it's reporting 2, but it's like 2.1. No, it's way worse than that.
So it's almost like if you were a gold prospector and you're chipping away at the face of this gold seam, and you just think, oh, it's only a little bit, but one more chip away with your axe would have then revealed the whole seam. It feels like for a lot of people, they're probably stopping too early, or they're possibly looking at the wrong data set, or they're maybe just not going deep enough. But the answer could be just that one, almost that one conversation or that one click away. Oh, it must be so frustrating when you actually see somebody who's been missing it for all this time, but also very rewarding when you say, look, it was over here, and almost kind of uncovering that for them. The work that you do you must see a lot of smiling people when you've actually uncovered that gold, for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because although this used to be the mainstream of measuring performance, it was for a while replaced by this illusion of the pixels that were going to give us all the answers. And only now, as of like 2 years ago, has really come back. With the death of third-party pixels, people understood that it's much worse than it used to be, and it's only going to get worse and worse as users are demanding more privacy. We're not able to follow you as a person across every device, every channel. It's just not possible anymore. So that made people much more aware of the issue, and we are seeing a ton of growth, not only for ourselves, but we work with other analytics companies that are seeing the same trend. So marketers are becoming more sophisticated. They're embracing these new technologies, and they're understanding that because the advertising cost has been increasing steadily in the last 10 years. Some of those margins are not there anymore. So throwing more money at the problem is just not an option for a lot of companies out there, and they have to get more out of it. So sometimes it kind of comes out of necessity. Like I've been doing things for a very long time a certain way, results have been worse and worse and worse. I just can't keep on the same path. There has to be something new. And we, of course, wish, we got the call 2 years before that. And sometimes we do, but sometimes, it has to get really bad. And sometimes heads need to roll before somebody, a new person comes into the position and says, yes, we need a higher level of sophistication. It's completely unacceptable that we're spending more than half of our marketing budget on ads that we can track.
Yeah, and it is just that moment, I guess, for any business owner or marketer where they see that little piece of evidence where, you might uncover something and you show them, look, this is what was there all along, and now you can see it. You want to do this, don't you? And of course, everybody's going to say, well, yes, obviously, because the return on investment is, well, it works. So yeah, it's hugely, I guess, exciting both for you, but also for the client. Tell me about the way that AI is kind of embedded in this thinking then, because I guess a lot of kind of what you're talking about here can be done manually, but AI obviously now is in play here, which enables us to do things at scale, which I guess I'm sort of expecting you to say, well, yes, that enables us to uncover stuff that we could never have seen before. I mean, how has AI kind of changed your work and your world?
Yeah, so there are two aspects to this. So with our media mix modeling, that's a very sophisticated machine learning system we have, and we actually create a custom model for each of our clients. So no two clients have the same model, and we take the time to think about what are your customer segments, what products do you sell, which customers buy what products, what's your media mix, where are you advertising, what kind of ads are you running, what kind of audiences are you targeting, and so on. And based on all that, we create a model that describes your specific business. So although if you had unlimited time, a human could possibly do that. It's we're talking about like weeks of just doing, sheets and sheets of math. It's nobody does it that way these days. So with machine learning, you can very easily run an algorithm that can help you understand, given all these different inputs, all these different marketing activities, what's the most likely explanation for the outcomes that you are seeing and how those change over time. Um, so yeah, and, every discipline in science uses some form of modeling. This happens to be a pretty complex one because the world is complex. There are so many things that influence our purchasing decisions. And then in terms of the, what most people understand as AI, I would say something very similar, that if you give a very, very proficient trained analyst like access to all your data and a couple of days to figure out patterns, they could come back with a really good set of insights, because they would know where to go look. The thing with AI is that we can scan millions of data points every single day, discard all the noise, and just leave you with, these are 5 things that are happening right now. You should know about this, right? So that you can train an AI system to do something that humans could possibly do, but we have better things to do with our time. So I think that's the beauty of AI, and the fact that it can index all this data, and even beyond the recommendations it's giving, you can just ask, what happened to my sales last month, and just it will pull it up, and why did it happen, and what can I do about it, and you can have it back and forth. And if you're working with a human, most likely as you ask new questions, they would have to go back to the data and look at that specific data. So with an AI system, you can have a real-time conversation with somebody who knows literally everything about your business.
And it almost becomes then either you do, Zeke, and or the AI then becomes like a strategic partner. This feels like this goes so much more deep than just, okay, here's where to put the ad spend. It is so kind of directional for the business, because you might be spotting opportunities or challenges or a trend that a human wouldn't spot that actually might change the whole direction of the business potentially. It's a really strategic approach, this, isn't it, if you do it right?
Absolutely. And the thing about AI is that we don't see AI as a replacement for humans. Like we see it as it's a way to enhance our ability to do things. There are things that we as humans do much, much better. Like we understand context very well. We understand the strategy for client A could be totally different from the strategy for client B, and how to know what your vision is to be able to provide recommendations. So these AI systems are very, very good at like looking at trends and giving me, some headlines, but then I have to like filter that through my own, cognitive machine and figure out like how to have that conversation with you. What are we going to do about that? And that's how I encourage people to think about AI. It's think about it as an employee with unlimited time that you can train to do certain tasks and provide results pretty much in real time. And right now, for example, we're building a set of actions that your AI agent can do on top of your data. So not only will it be able to give you data or answer questions or give you reports, but also if performance for your Google ads is not very good, you can post to your Slack team, or you can email your agency about what's going on. So that's not only consuming data from the AI, but also like giving the AI certain responsibilities for crafting an email that maybe it'll take you 10 minutes to copy and paste and write the email, but you can AI can do it in seconds. And all these little improvements in efficiencies are going to set it so we can spend most of our time doing what we really love and much less on things that are repetitive and boring.
And I don't think there's anybody who's going to say, do you know, Zeke, I don't want to be doing that. I want to do the repetitive and boring things. Like, you never heard that, did you ever? So I think that's the really important thing here. This opens us up both professionally and personally to, finding more insights and, evaluation of the actual things that are happening in our business at the same time as freeing up our time to then make the most of that and actually to get out onto the beach and go for the walk and do all those things that we never find time to do. So it's a win-win, isn't it, all round, which is so exciting. You've got a playbook, haven't you? The Data Speaks playbook. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's essentially, we found that having the data that you need available to you is only half of the equation. The other half is making sure that you're actually using the data to make decisions, and that as you make decisions based on data, you have a way to track whether the outcomes you expected are actually happening or not. And that's a series of checks that you need to do. So we suggest once a year do this and this and this, once a quarter do this and this, once a month and once a week. There are certain things that don't really change much, so you can look at them every quarter. Certain things that do change a lot and are really important, so you need to keep a very close eye on. So it's essentially a series of recommendations to create a regular cadence that your team can work with. And having a pre-scheduled time of the week, for example, to meet with teams, and a agreed upon set of metrics that you're going to be looking at is key, because you don't want each team to come with a different report every week, showing you something different. Maybe you leave a few minutes for that, but it's really important that you align with each team that you manage in terms of, this is the vision for the company, and this is the vision for what you're doing, and how that contributes to the bigger vision for the company. And these are the 3 to 5 metrics that we're going to be looking at to measure results. So that gives them, I think, is one of the best gifts you can give your teams. Clarity on what you're doing, how that plays in the bigger picture, but also these are the things that we're going to be looking at, and how we're going to be looking at performance. So these are the things that I should be optimizing for. And the other thing that we say in the playbook is that there are 2 different ways that we see teams work with data. One is very looking at as a report card. Either you pass or you failed, and it's your problem. I blame you. But there's a much more useful way to look at it, which is, we're always learning, and it's not about you, it's not about me. You try something and it either works or it doesn't work, and we had to document it either way. So if I've been doing social media for 4 years and we hire somebody else in the team, I need to be able to give that person a list of, these are all the things that we tried and worked. These are all the things that we tried and didn't work. And those insights, should be building up over time, so you don't have each person starting from scratch.
It's powerful, really powerful. And I understand that's a free download from your website in PDF for anybody who's interested. How do they get hold of that?
Dataspeaks.ai.
Simple as that, everybody. Dataspeaks.ai. And I'm assuming they can connect with you, and if anybody is interested in carrying the conversation on and maybe getting some support from you, they can contact you through that route.
Absolutely. Yeah, they can go to Dataspeaks.ai, or feel free to find me on LinkedIn. We could put the link to my LinkedIn in the show notes, and I'm here to help.
Wonderful. Zeke, this is great because I think, for me, I talk about this a lot, but to actually get that clarity that, this is something that goes far deeper, I think, than most people think. It isn't just at that advertising level. This goes right the way through your customer journey. So, ultimately, you're going to be optimizing that journey for your own business, but also then for the customer experience that you're looking after, and hopefully sort of gaining quality all the way through. So Zeke, this has been just such a useful conversation. I think for most business people listening, they'll be thinking, thank you, I'll take that, and I'm going to go and get that download now because it's so powerful. Zeke Camusio, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Neil.